See now stories of infidelity and stories of betrayal. What I'm going to share now is something that has deeply impacted my life. I had never revealed this to anyone before, but today I decided to share this story here. My husband Luis hired a construction worker, and he was really very handsome. When Luis left for work, I ended up being left alone with the construction worker, and that's when a sequence of events unfolded that my husband never knew about. I invite you to stay with me throughout this story to find out what really happened. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the like button, and activate the bell so you don't miss any video. Get ready, because my story is about to begin. It all started when I asked Luis to fix it. Our balcony was outdated, a space that needed renovation. My husband wanted to transform that little corner into something perfect, beautiful, an ideal place to entertain friends and have barbecues. So I decided to call a professional known for his ability to renovate these types of spaces. At that time in my marriage, I was going through an incredible phase. I had just straightened my hair, and my husband always said that it brought out my blue eyes, making me look even more elegant. I had also had a procedure to improve my smile, and people kept commenting that I had a face with modeling potential. At the time, I was 31 years old, and that was when I met Alejandro, the bricklayer. He was 21 years old and lived on the same street, just 2 blocks away. Alexander came from a humble family, and since his teenage years, he was used to working hard. Most of his neighbors knew him well, as he had done all kinds of jobs, from carpentry to gardening. When he turned 18, he got a part-time job at a construction company, and from there, he started offering his bricklaying services in the neighborhood. He was very popular in the neighborhood, and practically everyone had hired his services. That's why we get so many good recommendations about his work. Hey, before we continue with the story, subscribe to the channel so we can bring you more stories like this. Now, let's move on. After discussing what my husband and I wanted to do on the porch, Alexander went over everything and explained how the project would be carried out. According to his estimates, it would take about 3 months to complete the remodel. We agreed on the plan, and so it all began. Alexander worked Monday through Friday, from 8 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. He always had a lunch break at noon, and, as a courtesy, we invited him to have lunch with us every day before continuing with the renovation. During these shared lunches, I got to know him a little better. However, Alexander never talked about his personal life. He limited himself to talking about work and plans for the following week. At first, I confess that I was a little suspicious of his presence, especially after hearing some rumors about him. But when I realized how focused he was on his work, I felt relieved and decided not to listen to the gossip anymore. At one point, while he was deeply focused, I couldn't help but look at him more closely. Alexander had sun-kissed skin, and at 1.85 meters tall, he displayed a well-defined and toned body. My mind, for a moment, forgot that it was inappropriate to look at someone like that. But I was brought back to reality when Alexander approached me and, in a husky voice, asked me if I needed anything. His voice made me react sharply, and without thinking much, I asked for a glass of water and hurried out. From that day on, I began to notice that Alexander's actions were becoming more and more disturbing. There were times when I wondered if it was all just in my head. I wondered if I was imagining all this, but my intuition told me that I was not wrong. I didn't know if Alexander was married or engaged, and, to be honest, I didn't care. What I knew for sure was that I was not willing to sacrifice my marriage for a desperate relationship. Still, anguish grew within me as Alexander began to dominate my thoughts. As time went on, my attraction to him only grew. I knew it wasn't love, but the strength of that attraction was so intense that it made me feel like I was floating in a bubble. One look from Alexander was enough to make my entire body tremble. As night fell, my mind began to weave fantasies that previously only appeared when I was looking for inspiration. Alexander attracted me in an overwhelming way, and I knew that what was happening between us was not love, but pure desire. It was as if he was an intruder releasing a long-repressed passion, the result of a marriage that had become monotonous. I had it very clear in my mind. Every morning after I said goodbye to my husband, I would rush to the bedroom, change from my pajamas to my best clothes, put on makeup, and groom myself carefully. I imagined the expression Alexander would put on when he saw me. And when he finally arrived, his eyes would meet mine, shining with an intensity that made me shiver, as if a burning fire had been lit between us. I knew he liked what he saw, and that look made me feel alive like I hadn't felt in a long time. But after 2 days of this endless flirting, I began to feel uneasy. Had Alexander heard the rumors that he shouldn't get involved with a neighbor? Or were you waiting for me to take the initiative? One morning, as he organized his tools and stacked some slabs, I worked up the courage and hugged him by the neck. He remained silent, still, as I pressed my body against his. "Ma'am," Alexander whispered, his voice full of doubt. But my lips seemed sealed by a silent spell. I didn't dare say anything, afraid that by speaking, the magic of the moment would break and I would back away. Then I squeezed harder and my hands slid down his stomach. "If you've made it this far, you can't miss what comes next. So keep going and enjoy every moment." Alexander released my hug and we faced each other head on. He pushed one of my hands away, but held the other firmly. His hand was large, and that detail made me imagine how his fingers would feel on me. "Can I make you mine?" Alexander asked, with a tone that conveyed total certainty. I answered with a yes. From that moment on, my body began to tremble with desire. The kiss that followed was fervent, insistent, and deep. He kissed me until I felt feverish. When we finally broke apart for air, his lips explored every inch of my body, making me shudder to the last ounce of my being. His arms wrapped around me, pressing me against his chest, and I let myself be carried away by that intensity. Once again, an overwhelming need to join him took over me. It was as if an inner voice was begging me to merge with Alexander, to possess every inch of that being that had so boldly seduced me. In that moment, I discovered an unknown side of myself. Alexander proved to be a passionate lover, leading me to explore dimensions I had never dared to try. He guided me, accompanied me, and freed me in ways that left my being transformed and amazed. When it was all over, the feeling of having touched heaven again and again was simply incredible. My body and soul were torn apart by every touch and every exchange of power between us, even when he should have been going about his business. The phone alarm rang, bringing us back to reality and interrupting the bubble of desire that had enveloped us since the morning. We quickly dressed and, as we left the dining room, Alexander took me firmly by the arm. "Is everything okay?" he asked in a cautious tone. I nodded, trying to convey that yes, everything was okay, although he continued to look at me closely, looking for a more certain answer. "Yes, it's okay," I assured, although Alexander was a young man with an aura of innocence disguised by vast experience. He was a man formed by work and effort, with a steely temperament and a peculiar taste for mature women. I had lost myself in a boring marriage and had forgotten what it was like to be desired. What started as an idea, a fantasy fueled by rumors, became reality and confirmed all the speculations about Alexander. I was fascinated by all aspects of Alexander. I felt that there was more to him, secrets and depths that he did not reveal at first glance. The way he touched me indicated that there were layers yet to be explored, and I was eager to uncover each one. Although I knew it wasn't right, we were two people indulging our most intense fantasies, and I couldn't deny that I wanted more. So I asked Alexander if we could repeat the experiment the next day. He looked at me with a penetrating gaze that seemed to answer my question even before he spoke. The next day, and the days after, we repeated what had begun as a brief fling. Pure and simple attraction, with no promises of love or additional expectations. I understood that we were just exploring a mutual desire, with no illusions of a future beyond what we were living. So, am I the villain for letting myself be carried away by the bricklayer's charm? That's the question I've been asking myself lately. Would you, in my place, have acted differently? If you had been another man, would you have resisted? These are questions I can't answer with certainty. My choices have led me down a path I cannot deviate from, a path where a young, attractive construction worker becomes the protagonist of my deepest desires. I would like to hear your opinion. Leave a comment below. Yes, I cheated on my husband with a young bricklayer, a simple man, but who, somehow, fulfilled desires I didn't know I had. Nobody is perfect, and sometimes we seek happiness in unexpected ways. With Alexander, the first discovered aspects of myself that I never imagined exploring. But what begins inevitably comes to an end. Over the last week, my husband began coming home more frequently, eager to see the results of the renovation. This made my meetings with Alexander more spaced out. On Alexander's last day of work, I took advantage of a vacancy. While my husband was at the hardware store, Alexander and I had one last chance to be together. In a closet, completely isolated and in absolute silence, we had our last encounter. He offered me one last taste of what only he could give me as I struggled with a whirlwind of remorse. The thought of confessing everything to my husband crossed my mind, but I knew it would mean the irreversible end of our marriage. For now, my secret remains intact. And you, what did you think of this emotional story? How would you have reacted in a similar situation? Thank you for being here, and if you liked it, don't forget to comment and like the video. Subscribe for more stories, and remember, we live stories every day.